New videos every day.
Did you know that until 1973 in America, homosexuality was considered a mental disorder? But as America's moral values changed and as homosexuality became more socially acceptable, the American Psychiatric Association voted to remove homosexuality from the official list of mental disorders. The American Psychiatric Association no longer recognizes homosexuality as an official mental disorder, and the U.S. military has a don't ask, don't tell policy concerning one's sexual preference. However, the U.S. Pentagon holds as its official standpoint that homosexuality is in fact a mental disorder, as do Islamic psychiatrists. So why is it that in one country a group of psychiatrists thinks that homosexuality is a mental disorder, and in another country they say it's not? Yet, an American official government agency says that it is in fact a mental disorder. So is it a mental disorder or is it not? And why is it that these different groups have different opinions? Now here's something really strange. The American Psychiatric Association does not recognize homosexuality as a mental disorder. However, if you're a guy and you wish you were a girl, or vice versa, you have gender identity disorder. Or, if you're a girl and you like dressing up in guys' clothes, or vice versa, you have transvestic fetishism disorder. So it's okay to have same-sex intercourse, but you'd better not do it while wishing you were the other sex or wearing their clothes. If you go back to cultures such as ancient Greece or Rome, you'll find that homosexuality was acceptable. In fact, in some cases it was expected. But if you come to modern-day society, different places around the world can't agree whether or not homosexuality is or is not a disorder. But let's face it, these countries that are labeling homosexuality as unacceptable or as a mental disorder, these viewpoints are usually based on moral or religious foundations. Now, how scientific does it sound to you that in America, before 1973, homosexuality was a mental disorder, but after 1973, it wasn't? And in modern times, different psychiatrists have varying opinions on whether or not homosexuality is or is not a mental disorder. Now, I thought that science was supposed to be based on facts and objectivity. Doesn't seem very scientific to me. So, is this science? So could it be that what society considers to be mental disorders are actually a matter of moral judgments? Now, this point is made more specifically clear by looking at the sexual mental disorders. For example, mental disorder number 302.4, exhibitionism, also covered in the legal system under lewd behavior or indecent exposure. And mental disorder number 302.2, pedophilia, having sex with children. Or mental disorder number 302.84, sexual sadism, where an individual likes to or gets sexual gratification from causing pain on another individual. Or mental disorder number 302.82, voyeurism. Now, this behavior is covered under the legal system in peeping Tom laws. Now, to me, it seems like most of these disorders are classified based on morality instead of objective science. After all, most of these behaviors are illegal anyway, aren't they? What you have to understand about this book is that it's classifying mental disorders based on standards of behavior. Individuals have standards of behavior. They're called morals. Companies and businesses have them too. They're called policies and procedures or guidelines. In society, standards of behavior are classified into laws, but the American Psychiatric Association is classifying standards of behavior into mental disorders. Now, there is a reason behind why the American Psychiatric Association uses a list of behaviors as its diagnostic criteria for mental disorders, but I'm not going to get into that here. However, I do want to point out the fact that diagnosing mental disorders based on behaviors effectively makes this book here a moral code, just as the legal system has its penal code. When a moral code is violated, there are consequences. For example, an individual violates his own moral code and he feels guilt. At your job, you violate the company's policies and procedures, you get fired. In society, you violate or break a law and you're fined or thrown in jail. By American psychiatry standards, you violate their code of behavior and you are labeled as mentally ill, given drugs to modify your behavior, or involuntarily incarcerated, which is basically like being in jail. Did you know that at the start of the Holocaust, the first people thrown in the gas chambers were those who were labeled as mentally ill? And at the same time, over in America, those labeled as mentally ill were given forced sterilization so that they couldn't reproduce. Now today, to modify your behavior, if you are labeled mentally ill, you are given drugs. While back then, the consequences were sterilization or even death. Now, to really drive home the fact that the diagnostic criteria for mental disorders are really based on lists of behaviors which are nothing more than morals, I'm going to read to you some of the diagnostic criteria for attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. Under inattention, it is unacceptable behavior to often fail to give close attention to detail or make careless mistakes in your work, schoolwork, or other activities. It is unacceptable behavior to often not seem to listen when spoken to directly. It is unacceptable behavior to often have difficulty organizing tasks or activities. It is unacceptable behavior to be often forgetful in your daily activities. Under hyperactivity, it is unacceptable behavior to often fidget with your hands or squirm in your seat. It is unacceptable behavior to run about or climb excessively in situations in which it is inappropriate. It is unacceptable behavior to have difficulty playing or engaging in activities such as leisure activities quietly. It is unacceptable behavior to talk excessively. Under impulsivity, it is unacceptable behavior to often blurt out answers before questions have been completed. It is unacceptable behavior to often have difficulty awaiting your turn. And it is unacceptable behavior to often interrupt or intrude on others. So essentially, what an ADHD diagnosis is saying is that you have these behaviors which are unacceptable, and so you need this drug which will modify your behavior and make you more acceptable. So it would appear then that we are diagnosing mental disorders based on morals. Now, is this true of all mental disorders? Well, let's look at a couple other ones, starting with my personal favorite, mathematics disorder. And yes, there is a mathematics disorder. You're not very good at math, you're labeled as mentally ill because that's unacceptable. Or substance abuse disorders. You abuse drugs such as marijuana, cocaine, heroin, caffeine. That too is unacceptable and you are labeled as mentally ill. Or last, panic disorder. You have panic attacks. Well, society frowns upon having panic attacks in public places, and that too is unacceptable and you are labeled as mentally ill. Another point I want to bring up is that at least in the legal system, in order to be incarcerated, one has to have committed a crime, been brought before a jury and a judge in a court system, and have it proven beyond reasonable doubt that the crime was in fact committed. However, in the mental health system, one only has to form an opinion about you and state that you may possibly be a potential threat to yourself or others in order to be incarcerated against your will. Now, in the legal system, you at least have to do something. But in the mental health system, a mental health professional only has to form the opinion that you may be a threat to yourself or others. Now let me ask you, what would it be like if in our legal system a police officer could incarcerate you based on his own opinion that you may commit a crime? Now another point I want to bring up is that drugs that are given to individuals with mental health problems are called behavioral medications. These drugs are given to individuals with the purpose of modifying their behavior, which has been found to be unacceptable. So in essence, what we're saying is that individuals are unacceptable and we can give them a drug to make them more acceptable individuals. So what the mental health system boils down to really is a second legal system. In the legal system, you break a law and you're fined or incarcerated, thrown in prison or jail. In the mental health system, you're found to have unacceptable behavior and you are labeled as mentally ill, given drugs to modify your behavior, electroshock therapy, or even committed against your will. Now, I would really like to hear what you think about all the things that I've just told you. So leave a comment, rate the video, and subscribe because we'll be making more.
For more great videos like this one, check out the Psychetruth channel on YouTube.